pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with another page 112 tag, the totally blind version. I'm going to give a very brief summary of this tag, which is that it's based on a French literary prize where you evaluate a book without any author or title information, solely on its page 112. There's more information on the literary prize in the show notes, and this version of the tag is where one of my subscribers has sent me 3 page 112s. I don't know the authors or the titles, and I'm going to read them to you. I'm going to give my response, but the main point, the fun of the video, if it's fun, is that you will gauge your own response to each excerpt, and at the end I'm going to pull up the email which identifies the books, and then we'll have a little bit of a chat, and maybe you'll want to try one of these books for yourself, and maybe I will too. So these excerpts have been sent to me. I have not even so much as previewed them. I just finished printing them by one of my lovely subscribers, Sonya. So thank you, Sonya. And at the end I'm going to go on to my email and open the second document that she attached, which has the authors and titles. So let's get started. Book number 1. I called the tiny, dry editor. Goodness, she said, I had completely forgotten about you. I'm afraid this week's not so good after all. I still haven't looked at your application. Could you call me next week? Do you think she's serious? I asked Candy. I don't know, she said. She sounds like a bitch. I registered at a temp agency with stick furniture and a thin carpet, the color of which made me think of cholera. When I walked in, the gimlet girl behind the desk sat up straight and stared. I remembered my 15-year-old enemy, one sharp elbow sticking out as she stroked the dresses that lay over her arm. I applied for a word processing job and checked the box that said night shift. She sent me to an advertising firm that evening. The office was on the 42nd floor of a beautiful half-cylinder of steel and glass. The word processing room was large and curved, with whole walls made of enormous windows that had no glare on them. The supervisor showed me to my desk, a section of long table blocked off by low plastic barriers. Some day workers were finishing up a birthday party at the end of the table. There was laughter and crumbling cake. I turned on my machine and a black square of infinity appeared, one flashing square star in its upper left corner. There was a burst of laughter. I glanced sideways and saw a strange little figure coming down the hall. From a distance her whole face looked askew, puckered like flesh around a badly healed wound. She came closer. I saw the wounded pucker was a smile. She sat across from me. "Hi, hon," she said. I don't like that one very much. It's not a Sean book, I can tell. It reads almost like YA to me. Although it seems like the protagonist might be a bit older than that, but nope. The writing's fine. It just doesn't interest me at all. The story doesn't interest me. I don't know what a tiny, dry editor is. No idea. So this woman instead signs up at the temp agency. I used to be a secretarial temp. Off and on I've done it for many years, in fact, so maybe that's why I don't like it. Yeah, no, this one just doesn't, the story is not interesting. The protagonist does seem very, very negative, and I think I would grow tired of that, like this at the end. The strange little figure, her face looked like, puckered like flesh around a badly healed wound. It's like, oh, I think I would get tired of that way of looking at the world quite soon. So no, that one is not for me. Book number 2. They had reached their own house, accompanied all the way by a young man. This didn't happen often. In fact, this was the first time. Akos shook Ijas by the hand. "Thank you, my dear boy," he said, then turned inside. The iron gate banged shut behind them. Miklos looked through the grill into the garden. Here it was all silence and solitude. He looked at the decorative glass balls among the flowers, the stone garden gnome on the lawn, which seemed to stand on guard. A sunflower hung its head in the failing evening light, as if blindly searching for the sun on the ground. The sun into which it would usually stare, and which was now nowhere to be found. He could hear them rummaging from inside the house, the old couple preparing for rest. and he could see quite clearly before him the wretched rooms where suffering collected like unswept dust in the corners, the dust of lives in painful heaps, piled up for many long years. He shut his eyes and drank in the garden's bitter fragrance. At such times, Miklos Ijas was working. He stood for some minutes before the gate, with all the patience of a lover waiting for the appearance of his beloved. But he was waiting for no one. He was no lover in a worldly sense. The only love he knew was that of divine understanding, of taking a whole life into his arms, stripping it of flesh and bone, and feeling into its depths as if they were his own. From this, the greatest pain, the greatest happiness is born, the hope that we too will one day be understood. Strangers will accept our words, our lives, as if they were our own. Well, this one strikes me, and I don't think it's only because of the foreign-sounding, maybe Greek names. Miklos sounds Greek, but maybe I'm completely wrong. And Akos. Miklos does, but then it seems like I thought there was an Akos, an Ijas, and a Miklos, but then later it's Miklos Ijas. So Ijas as a family name doesn't particularly sound Greek to me. So I have no idea what ethnicity or nationality we're dealing with here. But it does kind of read to me like a translation. I don't know about this one. Well, I mean, I'm curious about it, so let's start with that. And it's the young man who's accompanying them to their own house is Akos. But there's a they, and I don't get a sense of who's the other person, because the only other person, who's the two people that Akos is bringing to the house. There's a Miklos Ijas, but there's no reference. Yeah, I have no idea what's going on, so I'm curious. He could hear rummaging from inside the house, the old couple preparing for a rest, but this has been referred at the beginning to being their house. And he's watching, and I kind of get an ominous feeling. It says, at such times he was working. What does that mean? Is he like a robber? Thief? But then it gets all kind of, and this part is a bit of a turn-off. At the end, it's like, no, it sounds like he's some kind of spiritual. I don't like that last paragraph at all, so that's the turn-off for me. All the patience of a lover waiting for the appearance of his beloved. But he was waiting for no one. The only love he knew was that of divine understanding. As soon as I read that, it's like, no, I don't want to read this book. No religious mumbo-jumbo in my fiction! So that one doesn't really work for me, but there's things I'm curious about. The writing's fine, but a little bit flowery, and strikes me as translation, which usually doesn't work for me, because there's not very many good translators in the world. I'm sorry, it's true! Unless you're a Dostoevsky or a Elena Ferrante or somebody that, well, most translated fiction is unreadable to me. This is not unreadable, but just... Alright, well, I'm hoping for book number 3 here. I put the gun in my pocket. As soon as I was no longer touching it, I could feel the madness start to drain out of my body. Only the horror was left, a kind of hot, tactile afterglow, the memory in my right hand of trying to pull the trigger, of pressing the hard metal against my skull. If there was no hole in that skull now, it was only because I was stupid and lucky, because for once in my life my luck had won out over my stupidity. I had come within an inch of killing myself. A series of accidents had stolen my life from me and then given it back, and in the interval, in the tiny gap between those two moments, my life had become a different life. When Alma finally lifted her face again, the tears were still running down her cheeks. Her makeup had smudged, leaving a zigzag of black lines across the center of her birthmark, and she looked so disheveled, so undone by the catastrophe she had made for herself. I almost felt sorry for her. "Go wash up," I said. "You look terrible." It moved me that she didn't say anything. This was a woman who believed in words, who trusted in her ability to talk her way out of tough corners. But when I gave her that command, she stood up from the sofa in silence and did what I told her to do. Just the wan trace of a smile, the barest hint of a shrug. As she walked off and found her way to the bathroom, I sensed how badly she had been defeated, how mortified she was by what she had done. Inexplicably, the light of her leaving the room touched something in me. It turned around my thoughts somehow, and in that first flash of sympathy and fellow feeling, I made a sudden, altogether unexpected decision. Okay, well, I don't know if this is a Sean book, but this is really lively writing. So this is the only one that really grabs me in terms of the story and the writing. It's great writing. I don't know what kind of a book, but when it starts with putting the gun in your pocket, and it seems like kind of thrillery, but it's really interesting, and I think the writing is great. I mean, I can just hear it in my voice. As I was reading it, my voice just began to appreciate the cadence and the rhythm of the prose, which wasn't happening at all in those first two. So this one, and I have no idea what's going on. Who is Alma? I don't get the sense that she is the protagonist's spouse. There seems to be more of a distance between them. But there's obviously been some kind of violent incident or threat of violence, some kind of a danger. Only the horror was left, and there's the gun, and he had almost killed himself. I don't understand that, so I'm curious about that. Alma's been crying. He tells her to go wash up, and she does. And then, talk about a cliffhanger, that last sentence, it turned around my thoughts somehow, and in that first little flash of sympathy and fellow feeling, I made a sudden, altogether unexpected decision. So that's where page 112 is. So now I'm very curious. I don't think it's necessarily going to be a Sean book, my kind of a book, but this is the only one that I would probably want to try. So, book 3 is my first choice. I don't think I'm interested in the others, but if I had to rank the other two, it would be the reverse order. Book 3 is my first choice, book 2 is my second choice, and book 1 I'm not at all interested in. So, let's find out what these books are. Maybe I'll be quite surprised. Oh, for God's sakes, I always say that, but I'm genuinely surprised. Book number 1, the novel is called Veronica by Mary Gateskill. Okay, very interesting. Book number 2, I don't know if I'm going to do a little bit I'm going to need some help from YouTube because I can't pronounce this writer's name. Just as an aside, do you know how to find out about how to pronounce writers' names or any words, actually? You just type the word in Google, plus the word pronounce, or plus the word pronunciation. It doesn't matter. Either of those two words. And usually, almost 99% of the time, you're going to find a link to a YouTube video, which from pronouncenames.com or somewhere, there's several different websites that specialize in audio pronunciation. So I'm going to do that right now, because I don't know how to pronounce this writer's name. The novel it's an NYRB classic, and the title is Skylark. And I'll do my best. I'll say Dezo Kostolany, but this is pronounceitright.com. But if you just put it into Google, it'll pull up whatever site has it, right?
Dezo Kostolany.
Did you catch that?
Dezo Kostolany.
Deshu Kostolany, or Kostolany Deshu, okay? So that was fun. Okay, so, and the title is Skylark. And book number 3 is a famous Paul Auster novel, The Book of Illusions. In fact, is that the one I have? I have it. I haven't read it, but there it is. This is the first and one of the only books by him that I own, and I haven't read it. So let's see if her page 112 and mine are the same. But that's the one that was my... Yeah, so there's page 112 that she has typed out for me. So very interesting. Well, I guess I need to try this book, hey? So let's find out a little bit more about the books. I've heard very negative things about Mary Gateskill. There must be some people that like her, but was it Simon Savage? I don't want to put negative reviews in anybody's mouth, but it seems to me it was Simon Savage a long time ago. I hated one of her books. I didn't like that at all. It has a 3.4 rating. If you care about Goodreads ratings, its ratings is 3.4. Published in 2005. And here's one of those blurbs that I hate. It says, it's about flesh and spirit, vanity, mortality, and mortal affection. Ooh! And it's set in Paris and Manhattan in the glittering 1980s. Yeah, no. No. And the second one, the Hungarian novel, I love the cover. Often the NYRB classics have great covers. First published in 1924, and this NYRB edition is 2010. Set in 1900 in the boonies of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And I see my friend Jenny of the Reading Envy podcast has given it 4 stars. So yeah, I will probably check that one out. What didn't I like about it? Oh, this kind of religious thing. I can be more understanding of it when it's an older book. It depends. I mean, I will read more about it before trying it. I'm more interested in that now that I know more of the background. And the Book of Illusions. This is about a guy loses his wife and 2 young sons in an airplane crash. He's a professor, and he's in a blur of alcoholic grief, and then he sees something on TV about a silent film comedian from Germany, maybe Germany, I don't know, from the 1920s, Hector Mann, who disappeared, and he goes on some kind of an odyssey to find out what happened to this filmmaker. So I was interested in that plot synopsis when I picked up the book secondhand here in Tokyo, and I'm more interested now that I've sampled a page of his writing. I wasn't so interested in the Booker nominated 4321, but then a couple readers who I really respect, including Thomas from the Readers Podcast, said it's a fantastic novel. Ignore the anti-hype. So I will try that one someday too, but I'm going to start with this one. Okay. So that is the page 112 tag. So how about you? Do any of these books grab you? Would you have made different choices than I did? Please give me your thoughts. I don't think I have, maybe I don't have any more page 112 excerpts, so if you're interested in sending me from, a couple people have promised them to me, but I don't think I have any more now. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep doing this page 112 indefinitely, and I'm still enjoying it though. You know, maybe it will run its course eventually. I still see it's kind of spreading around BookTube, and that's great. But I think I'm also going to try one where I do it the Simon Savage way, where I just hold up the 3 books and say I want, because it's such a useful method for choosing among 3 books or 5 books or whatever. I don't know if I want to read this one, or this one. I'm going to read you the page 112s and let's discuss, or I will decide that way. And I am going to try one of those probably, maybe next. Anyway, thanks for watching.